Hi, Chris Mather back with you in the It's About the Story series. This is Module 6, and if you've been watching this right along, you know that I had trouble getting through all of Module 5, so we had to stretch it out to another module. If you're kind of bouncing around, this would be a case where you really might want to go back to Module 5 and watch that first because they kind of go together. Okay, so in Module 5, we talked extensively about great product. And today we're going to start diving in with the other three that are important to VCs, as well as to entrepreneurial development organizations and other VC-like investors. So let's start with great market. So when you describe your market opportunity, one thing I will point out that the things at the bottom right in the light blue box are the things we spoke about in Module 2. I won't really hit those at all in this module. Um, but the great opportunity, you want to describe your total available market. It's okay if it's huge, but um, it has to be realistic and somewhat justified. You also want to talk about the best sectors for you to penetrate and attack, because it may be possible that the first sector you go after is not necessarily your best. It might be, but it might not be. And sometimes they call that a beachhead market because it's one you can easily get or get to and get into, but it really isn't the long-term prize. Um, in this, and then when you talk about your market opportunity, you don't want to say that you're going to address too many markets and sectors because the investors look at that as unrealistic. I once had a company who decided in the middle of their presentation to describe 9 markets they're going after, and I had to tell them no, no, no. So what we did is we worked together and described 2, and then at the end we said here are 7 other markets that we think are opportunistic for us at some point, and we'll have to decide when we go after that, or if we ever go after them. You should have some independent sources, and the main thing is you want to avoid the BS that a lot of people have heard relative to market opportunity. That if only 1% of the population uses this, it'll be awesome, or this one as soon as it gets on the web, it'll just go viral, because nobody believes those things. So what I would like to do is spend a little time on understanding some of the biggest uh, sectors or ways that the VCs like to see you look at the market. The thing they care most about is the total available market. And TAM is if you got every piece of business that you could reasonably get, that is your total available market. And generally, they like to see that as $1 billion. Understanding some of these others, the service available addressable market is next, and it basically says with the limitations that you've got, either by choice or by some kind of structure, what could you really reasonably get? And then the service obtainable market, but I've also seen people call this share of market, really is what you expect to do. So with that, I would like to go through a little example. And I call this the seatbelt mechanism example because it kind of goes over some of the pitfalls that people have in describing a market. Uh, so if you make the little seatbelt mechanism that goes in, so there's one per seat in any passenger vehicle. Um, if that's what you make, we're going to let the purple describe the total automobile market. So the first thing you'll notice as I look at the market for the seatbelts, it's a fraction of that. So that tells me that the total worldwide market would have to be not the size of the screen you're looking at, but hundreds of times larger, because the amount that's spent on seatbelts in the car is a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole automobile market. And what that means is you can't say the entire automobile market is your market, because it's not. Um, you have to say what is your real market, and that's a common mistake that people make all the time. So maybe a good way to do this is you take the number of cars sold by the number of mechanisms per car, and then the average price per mechanism would give you, that's what your TAM might be. Now, the service addressable market is with limitations. So let's say a great example, and that would kind of work out with the size of the bubbles, is that if you could only address the US and Asia, you couldn't do the European market because they had some safety standard that your systems didn't meet, then your SAM would be smaller. And then the SAM says, what do you think you're going to get? The reality is what VCs care most about is the TAM. All the rest, you're kind of making it up. If you have a working and a conversational knowledge about it, it just shows that you're thinking the right way, and that's really what they're looking for. The other thing that we like to look at with market size is there's two different approaches. One is top down, and the other one is bottom up. So in a uh, top down scenario, you start off with a overall market size, and then you start estimating the applicable share. So you keep making it smaller. So an example might be, whereas the bottoms up market is that you build a market up from some knowns and some estimates. So with top down, the example might be that the overall mechanical restraint market, mechanism market, is estimated by Frost and Sullivan or Gartner Group at $40 billion, 75% of which is probably about right, is estimated to be passenger automotive because it's the biggest, obviously the biggest seatbelt market because everybody in the car needs a seatbelt. The other way, if you do bottoms up, is what we did on the slide before this, where we say 75 million cars sold per year, average of 4.7 mechanisms per car, because some are 2-seaters, some are 4-seaters, some are 6, and some have 9. And I estimated $85 the average wholesale price. I have no idea if that's right, but that comes to a $30 billion market. Magically, they're the same because I made it come out to be the same. But that kind of gives you a sense of how you should look at this, and you shouldn't go crazy to be a quote market size expert, because that's not what they're looking for. They want you to be an entrepreneur, and they want you to be fairly tactical. So with that, I'm going to go to business model, and that is, how is it that you make money? Right now, everybody loves recurring business, which means you're getting money every single month. Some businesses get big enough, so let's say 3M, they make materials of different types, including sandpaper and lots of other things. They have recurring revenue because people need this stuff all the time. But a nice recurring revenue model is Netflix. Netflix, they keep going and they charge you monthly all the time. Amazon has a combination, where they have recurring revenue for people who have Prime, but then there's no guarantee if you don't have Prime, or even if you do, that you're going to buy every month. This is, when you present to a VC, is a real opportunity to fail. And if you're presenting to an entrepreneurial development organization, kind of a competition, it's a bigger opportunity to fail because they usually have a team kind of looking at this. And what I've found is that as soon as somebody hates your business model, they'll say it in the meeting that they have after you've left the room. And then some other people start to jump on, and it becomes what I call a feeding frenzy, which is disastrous. It is almost impossible to come back from that. In fact, the only way to do it is to have another investor decides to tune up to your opportunity, and in that meeting, he or she kind of defends you and say, no, I think they're doing it the right way. Then you're okay. But this is fraught with risk. So you really have to know what your business model is. So a few considerations that you should make if you're a software company is, again, use screenshots, but in this case, to show the customer interaction from a business model point of view. So more of human figures and things like that says this happens, this happens, this happens, to really explain how the money flows. They're going to ask questions if you're in the software side of things do you have a freemium to a premium model? Because one of the risks is that almost all the customers are freemium and they're getting your product for nothing. So you have to have a way to really encourage them to pay money. You need to be able to describe multi-sided business models, attributes, how the processes flow, how the values flow, how the dollars flow, and what role that you play. And as I mentioned before, you want to highlight recurring revenue because they love recurring revenue. So if you have that, you want to talk about it. I would like to describe a little bit of some multi-sided markets. So the classic and best example of a multi-sided market is Uber. They have the one that's great because then they kind of led this. So Uber, as you know, well, they have people who want rides, and they have people who want to provide rides. And what they do is they connect the two together. So the passengers have an account with Uber, and the drivers have an account with Uber, doing their role. But the real value creation or value flow is between the driver and the passenger. Passenger needed a ride, driver took them there. Passenger paid them and gave them a tip, and that's the way it works. So that is really worth explaining if you have one of those, because multi-sided markets are so common these days, and they don't always just occur in software. So I'm going to give you an example of one of a company that I've worked with for years, and they have an interesting situation in that if I can get this to work. There we go. So they're called Full Circuit Technologies, and they have technologies that materials technology that makes roads better, so that the roads last a lot longer and they're more resilient, and they have less potholes. So they have a couple things, because the paving contractor is their customer. They're the ones who are going to put their material into their asphalt mix. However, if the state departments of transportation don't approve it, it's never going to happen, because the paving contractors won't put anything in that the state says that they don't want, because they're the ones putting in the roads. Um, and the state probably won't even let them, even if they would do it. So they have a multi-sided market, and they really have a four-sided market, because there's also what are called mixing terminals, and they're part of the value chain, because the stuff goes to them first and then goes to the paving contractor trucks. So you've got to be able to explain your market in this kind of a way. When Full Circle did theirs, they had a great, basically triangular market like this, where they kind of showed this and then showed where the mixing terminal came in. So the considerations that you have for medical device and pharma companies when it comes to business models. One is, you probably more likely need to know your exit and likely acquirers, because it probably is your business model. There are so many medical device companies and pharma companies that never even get to where they're actually introducing product before somebody like Medtronic or J&J or Merck or Pfizer acquires them. But it's possible that your plans don't even include market introduction, but you better have a standalone one just in case. And I literally dealt with an entrepreneur that I'm coaching in a pitch competition just earlier today. And, we talked about the fact that, yeah, you're probably going to sell this technology before you get to market entry, but you better be ready to have the answer for the VCs in case they wonder what happens if you don't do that. In terms of energy companies, you really have to have, relative to business model, a solid understanding of how energy system sales work for your particular technology, because these are big systems generally. And so it is different if you're talking about an electric car, if you're talking about battery operated appliances or power tools. But when you're talking about a big system, whether it's wind, solar, geothermal, or whatever, you really have to understand how that works, because it's a whole different world. And then you have to make the case that you, as a small company, are going to have access to these channels, because in the outset, they're not necessarily going to believe that. So you're going to have to have some justification for why that would be the case. And then some considerations for the electronics technologies and semiconductors. It is also about sales channels. This is a world where I spent a lot of time in. It's not known by a lot of people, but it's things like direct sales, which is one potential costs involved with direct sales, but a lot of control, manufacturers, reps, distributors, and other type structures. And most investors these days will not understand the details and the idiosyncrasies of these channels. They will, however, be skeptical about your ability to have access to those channels. Same issue with energy, even if you're a smaller company, because can you really get at them? So you have to develop a real working knowledge of these channels and their structures, just so you can decide what to do and describe what it is that you plan to use. So the last one is a great team. And this is where you brag, and you have to make sure you do. I've had people say, I don't really like to brag, so they don't. No, you need to brag, because this is where you have to do that. And they're going to test if you have that entrepreneurial spark. And part of that's how they look at the team. So select the most important team members. Don't read the entire resume. Remember, they can read tremendously faster than you can talk. In fact, I'm going to give you an example in just a second of how you might want to do this. And if you have a great advisory board, and especially if you're still building out your team, you really want to talk about that, because anything that can help along those lines is going to help you. So I'm going to give you an example. This is a fictitious company that I made up with fictitious people and fictitious pictures. But this is how I would do it if I was describing this team. MapMind AI is an AI-oriented mapping company. So if I was Tom, I would go this way. So if you'll notice, I'm going to talk about each person, but I'm not going to read the resume. They'll read the resume. Yeah, well, as you know, I'm Tom Van Arsdale, and I'm the CEO and founder. I founded the company 3 years ago. My last company was Quantum Core Technologies, which we sold to NVIDIA in 2023. So I'm very happy about that. My background was electrical engineering, and I did product marketing for Keysight before that. My CFO, Diane Andreessen, she is excellent. She knows the CFO for big companies as well as 2 startups, which is really helpful for us. Davey Johnson is our CTO. He's awesome. And he's been working with the company with me for the last 5 years. He just brings a lot of knowledge, knack. He's a good engineer and he's a good manager. And our most recent addition is Sophia, and she just came to us from Locatell, where she was involved in territory sales, and we're just glad to have her. So we are building the team out, and we do have the ability and the plans to build out the team even further as we go along. So if you notice, what I did there is I didn't read any of the resume. I referred, but I didn't read it. And that's what you want to do. You want to describe your team like they're a great team, like you're at a party and you were saying how awesome these people are. So that is the end of Model 6 and all of the uh, core topics. So we've completed product, market, business model, and team. In the next module, which is module 7, we'll talk about some of the other important topics like intellectual property, uh, financials, the ask, and things like that. And then we will delve into how you take some of this information and start really turning it into a story. So hope to see you uh, in the future. And I won't go into perfect pitch this time because I'm over, but we'd love to have you do a perfect pitch with us, and you'll enjoy it for sure. And once again, we if you think you might watch this in the future and you like it, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Thanks again.